I have a relatively quick one today. Dredge is an atmospheric, cozy fishing game with sinister undertones. You play as some scruffy dude, out to prove your worth in the Great Marrows when their old fisherman just wasn't very good at his job, so you hop to it, space out and wreck your boat onto some jagged rocks. As you come to, the lovely town mayor greets you with the news that your ship is damaged beyond any possibility of repair. Just trust me, bro. But it's all good. You can have one of theirs, as a loan. Repayment? Don't worry about it. They'll just skim some of the top of your profits over time, so you better get on that fishing. He slaps you on the ass and off you go. The game's presentation is easily its best element. It really pulls you in with the environment and atmosphere. Sailing games can usually look pretty dull and repetitive, but Dredge has just enough going for it to stay fresh over its relatively short length. Every area feels different. You got your tropical paradise waters, crumbly mountainy waters, deep abyssal tentacly waters, hell, and dark wood waters. Yeah, think less Wolfman with the Kalash vendor and more one-armed Boris, trading you bait for dog tags so you can hunt down eldritch slimes with a mortar. Some of my favorite elements here are the landmarks. Another typical problem with games like these is that it's easy to get lost, because open waters tend to be pretty disorienting for some reason. But here, every biome has just enough natural landmarks so you can get your bearings, even without the provided map and compass. Well, most of the time anyway. Look at this wreck here, as an example. It has these tiny distinguishing features, making it easy to... The best one, though, has to be the lighthouse. It's placed right in the middle of everything, and visible at all times from almost any point on the map. It makes it very easy to orient yourself around it, and to get back to the starting village, which the game wants you to do anyway. Here, you can talk to and get quests from all sorts of characters. It's also where the textureless look they went for is more prevalent. A lot of indie games like doing this, despite it not always being a good fit, but in Dredge, especially with the character models, it helps to enhance some of that somber and uncanny mood. Everyone looks tired of your shit, which is appropriate because nobody sleeps in this game. Like, never. Why would the fishmonger be open for business at 3 AM? After I sell my stock, I can go across the road to the docks and get my hull fixed by 4 AM. It's all really weird, and they're all hypocrites, because they all keep telling me to stop asking these questions, maybe get some sleep and never go out at night. I didn't quite catch that. I guess I'll get some sleep. The true stars of the presentation, though, are the ambience and sound design. They're excellent. Especially the fishing and dredging sounds are great and make everything more satisfying. Huh, that's one fucked up looking fish. Some of the environmental sounds can also get pretty unnerving, depending on where you are. And how you are. What surprised me the most is the music. I can get really pretentious and picky with video game music. A lot of people just don't know how to use it, or there's not enough and it gets repetitive or grating, or it's just bad. None of that applies to Dredge. There's plenty of music for a lot of situations and all of the locations, and the developers, Black Salt, do one particular thing that has become a bit of a lost art. Restraint. The ambience is good enough to carry by itself, so they never feel the need to play it constantly. Sometimes it's just quiet, and you can take in the atmosphere. Sometimes the music literally creeps up on you. I never quite got what that turn of phrase meant, but listen to this. So yeah, presentation-wise, almost zero complaints. You're likely gonna get your money's worth just existing in and exploring this universe for the 8 to 12 hours the story takes to finish. And it genuinely kept me hooked for almost the entire duration. Huh? What's up with that? There you go. There is one thing, though, that's also an indie staple that I absolutely hate, and Dredge does particularly badly. Yeah. There's no voice acting at all, which, you know, I get it. It can get pretty expensive, but if you're gonna do this instead, then use some of that restraint I praised that you seem to have forgotten about. Gameplay. It's fishing Tetris. You do some fishing, you play some mini-games, you play some Tetris in your inventory, and then you go back to town to sell your stuff and buy better stuff. It's pretty straightforward. Fishing is satisfying because of the sounds, and the mini-games encourage you to get them on the first pass, so getting good feels nice. Inventory management is satisfying because filling in every slot rewards your monkey brain with dopamine. It's basically why people play Path of Exile. One thing I'll say here is that I played Dredge for around 15 hours with the controller, and then switched to mouse and keyboard for the Spyglass achievement, because using it with the pad is an absolute nightmare. And I have to say, I was already having a good time with Dredge, and then some complaints, I'll get to later, were making the game start wearing out its welcome. Switching to mouse and keyboard almost made all of those go away. My fucking god, does this game feel better to play with them. Treat yourself, king. Then there's upgrades, and most of them are also great. You got your fishing stat that's only good if you want to just sit there and not play the minigames. Which, I'm not your dad, go wild. The speed stat, which is the absolute best. Here's what your speed looks when you start off. Here it is with the first upgrade. And here it is in the late game. Yeah. Some of these upgrades are really impactful, and it's a breath of fresh air when most of the new games coming out nowadays do that thing where all the loot you find is always 0.01% better than what you have. So you just keep swapping shit out, and the progress is so gradual that you don't end up feeling it. Modern gaming is a fucking mess. But around here is where the one-sided praising stops, because everything else is quite a bit more nuanced. One of the stats that starts pathetic and keeps getting upgraded is lighting, and it's easily the worst. Now, I get it. You're out at sea. There can be miles of water before there's anything you could shine your spotlight on. And don't get me wrong, your cone of light does get way bigger, and it does make the obstacles visible just that little bit sooner. But overall, no matter how much you upgrade your lights, you're still bumbling around in the dark during the night. This never changes, and the lights don't do shit during the day, so it's for the most part just wasted space on your boat. This comes into contrast with the game's general lighting, which is amazing. You can pretty much tell the time of day just from how bright it is, though it does do that whole super hot thing where time only moves when you do, so it kinda feels like you're controlling the fucking sun, which, to be fair, does play well with the game's themes. Nights, on the other hand, are pitch black, which is also great. That's how they ought to be. You should be paranoid and disoriented. It makes the lighthouse even more of a shining beacon, guiding you to safety. You shouldn't be out here at night anyway. Everyone is banging on about it constantly. So why is that? Well, it's because of the elephant in the room. That's finally time to address. This is a Lovecraftian eldritch horror game. There's a reason I kept from talking about it directly for so long, and it's just as schizophrenic as our beloved Fishman boy. The game does a good job of introducing it gradually. The characters tell you about getting sleep and not being out at night, but the reason is never outright stated. Everyone seems to be skirting around the issue when you address it directly. And then there's the atmosphere, and the sea itself. The game is already tense. The sea already evokes fear of the unknown. Being surrounded by pitch darkness, not knowing what could be around you, will give you the spooks by itself. So you might take the advice. Go back to town before nightfall. Get some nice sleep and then get back to fishing in the morning. You might not even notice that there's a sanity mechanic for the longest time. It's genuinely great, and it creeps into your consciousness slowly, gradually. Your brain does an excellent job painting a picture of absolute dread. And then, you actually go insane. And it all falls apart. The cosmic horrors in this game are what I'm gonna call drive-by annoyances. They pop in out of nowhere, take a bite out of your ship or cargo, and then they fuck off, never to be seen again. And it's exclusively just a nuisance. Oh, you had only one of that rare fish you needed to end the quest? Yoink. Hey! Fucking asshole. How cute. Damn it! Burn. All that tension we've been building up, it's dead. This is my biggest problem with the game. The whole dread element of Dredge feels like an afterthought. The consequences for dying or failing to manage your sanity meter are pointless. If enough of your ship gets damaged, you get wrecked and need to load at the last place you docked at, which is often less than 5 minutes ago. And if it isn't, you wouldn't have made any meaningful progress to lose by design. If you don't die, then it often ends up being worse. Losing a rare fish you needed to finish a quest in another area, or getting your engine destroyed in the middle of nowhere will end up costing you more time than just straight up dying, which is just a weird backwards design choice. Or you can, of course, also just be an absolute god and dodge all the cosmic horrors like we're in Spain or something. All the quests are fetch quests, and while they are great for exploring every nook and cranny of this game, which is the best part, they all end up being just load this weird shit onto your ship and carry it across the map. Yep, just gonna load some cargo here. Just some objects I gotta bring to that other island. The main story quests are a bit more interesting, because they usually involve one unique activity on each biome. They also reward you with some cool powers that are always extremely useful. Like having Lovecraft himself push your boat along. Just make sure the engines can take it. Teleport back home. Fend off cosmic horrors with other cosmic horrors. And this. They are supposed to be this devil's bargain thing, with severe downsides, and they're just not. It's 98% upside, but that's not necessarily a knock against the game. The story itself, though, is unfortunately pretty short, and while the reveals themselves are pretty good in a vacuum, the way the dialogue is presented and the lack of voice acting diffuses most of the impact they could have had. The endings do have some really cool imagery, though. There's 2 of them, one of which requires quite a bit of exploration, and you can see them in the same playthrough, because the game ends after them and you can load just before they happen. I won't spoil anything, because there's no reason to, but I will give you a hint.
Sometimes dead is better.
But this was all subjective. While I do feel like the horror theme is interesting, and they could and should have done way more with it, this is intended as one of those post-dad games, where you just LARP running errands while on your ass on a couch instead of getting some actual cardio in, you fat, greasy fuck. So the lack of real consequences or pushback is by design, and it's obvious that a lot of people are into that. This does also make Dredge more of an interactive experience than a fleshed out video game with some challenge and skill. So it does also mean that you'll probably play it once and then never touch it again, which is a pretty big downside at the price they charge for it. But speaking of being fleshed out and charging prices, let's talk about that post-dad game label. The endgame of Dredge is unfinished, and most of the mechanics, not having to do with the core loop, feel like afterthoughts. Side quests are the biggest culprit. Most of them have to do with the characters, and finishing them seems like they would add other game mechanics. They almost never do. You gotta take this builder to a remote island so that she can get to work, but she never does. The castaway gives you a ring of good luck that does nothing. You find this dog and it ends up being a choice. Give it to the town researcher to enhance her portrait, or keep it for yourself to permanently lose 4 spaces of cargo capacity. It all reeks of cut content. The other rewards are books, bait, and explosives. Books don't do shit. Oh wow, 10% chance to not deplete the fishing node? Now I can make money 10% more efficiently, 10% at a time. What? Money itself is useless less than halfway through, because you would have bought everything that you can even buy with money by then, which also makes the treasure system pointless. These things can only be sold in the central hub, so you're gonna be carrying them around, wasting space that could be better used for fish that end up paying more anyway. Bait would be good to finish your encyclopedia faster, but the fish you get are random, and the bait is only rationed out in specific spots, so it's often slower than looking for that specific node you want. Explosives open up some locked rooms, but that's only 10% of the time. 90% of the time, you actually open up shortcuts that you will never use. They're incredibly tight and ass-clenchy, and the navigation can be pretty wonky, so you'll end up going around most of the time. Speaking of navigation, this isn't really criticism, and it's probably more than 50% of me playing with controller issue. But there's also a lot of stuff that messes with your direction, so what if it isn't? Even if you don't take shortcuts, there's plenty of narrow places you're gonna have to squeeze by. You're gonna be making this face a lot. Hope you mastered your parallel parking and 3-point turning. But then you crash anyway, because you drifted right when you were holding left. And now you're just sitting there, thinking, like, what was it? Was it the random winds? The waves? Am I going nuts? Or was it controller drift? Because Bluetooth is an abomination of a backwards technology, and an unfathomable piece of fucking dog shit. Guess I'll never know. The last element, and the worst, is equipment management. There's two types of upgrades. You can research stuff and buy it from the shop, or you can dredge up garbage and use it to upgrade your ship directly, either with new slots or by allowing existing slots to hold specific equipment. But why? Literally all it does is force you into switching stuff out for different activities, because even when fully decked out, you don't have enough room for everything you need. Take fishing for example. There's like 7 different types of fish. The rods might be able to catch up to 4 different types, so you're gonna need at least 2. But then, some species can only be caught in nets, and those take up the same slots as your rods, so you're gonna have to go back to port. Here we fucking go. Go into your storage, only accessible in port. Grab the net you need. But oops, you can't store your equipment in your cargo, because then you'll be confused. What's equipped and what's just sitting there, getting rusty. It's also a different shape to the rod you have equipped, so you can't hot swap it either. Put it back in storage, go to your cargo. Hold the button for 10 seconds to unequip your rod. Go into storage to find out that there's no that rod-shaped room to put it in. Go back into cargo, mount the rod back in, because, again, you can't store it normally in cargo. Go into storage, again, make room for it, go back into cargo, unmount the rod again, place it in storage, get your net, hold the button to mount the net. Find something else to go into the now empty slots you made, because going with them empty feels like a waste. Go do your thing, and then come back and do it all over again to get your old rod back into place. Why? Some quests give you weird eldritch rods that are generally great stat upgrades and good for catching aberration fish if you want to complete your encyclopedia, but you're never gonna use them. Some of the better ones don't have a fish type, so they only enhance the rods you already have equipped, so there's simply no room for them, unless you want to keep going through that previous song and dance over and over. The cherry on top of the proverbial shit sundae is that these are intended to catch aberrations easier, but they fall into that looter-shooter trap, where the increase is 1 to 3%, so they're borderline worthless for that too. It's such an easy fix too. When you start off, space is at a premium, so I thought, ooh, that's interesting. So you can choose between having bigger, better equipment, or you can have more space so you can carry more stuff around. Ingenious. But no, it's not balanced around that, so not getting the best stuff is just never optimal. When you're done with the upgrades, you hit another classic. You now have a bunch of garbage and research materials just taking up space. So do you delete them? What if you need them later? You don't know. I found 50 scrap metal notes before even seeing any wood. What if it happens again? All of this makes completing the encyclopedia, and the whole endgame in general, a chore from hell. And I understand that I'm dedicating half the video to what a lot of people will perceive as nitpicks, but we're talking half the mechanics in a fucking errands game. It's a game about doing chores, and playing the game, after a point, is the biggest chore of them all. I don't get weird intrusive thoughts like washing my dishes or feeding my cat when I play Factorio. The cat's dead. The game was clearly designed with the completionist in mind, because, again, it's more than half of what's available to do, and it simply fails utterly in that department. Which gets me to the DLC. As usual, I won't go into too much detail, but some things are worth mentioning with a bit more depth. Pale Reach is the best, hands down. It's just a separate area. It has its own biome, side quests, fish, weird fishmonger lady clone, some existential dread, and narwhals. It's a fucking masterpiece. Zero complaints. The other two, however, are both shit that should have been in the base game, that would have rounded up the experience. The Blackstone Key DLC is everybody's punching bag. It's gonna need about $350. You pay for worthless equipment that you will probably not even use early. It's not as much taking the piss as it's taking a piss on your face. The Iron Rig has some great content, but it feels like that content was in the game, and then they tore it out. Now, I'm not saying it's what happened, but I am saying that it sure feels like it. I finished the entire base game before buying the DLC. Iron Rig has no new areas, just a hub where you get your quests and new upgrades. All the activities happen in the same original locations, but every next step is locked behind finishing the previous one. So now, after playing the game for 20 hours, I have to go back to the same spots, in the same order, and do the same things, before being able to progress to another place I've already been to. All that garbage I hoarded is borderline worthless, because the new upgrades need new stuff, and the exchange rate is 1 of each old material for 1 piece of the new material. That's literally 4 times the work of just dredging up the new stuff to begin with. The second type of upgrade materials require a new net that can't catch fish, so it also exacerbates that swapping stuff around problem. It also makes an obnoxious fucking noise, constantly while in use, that doesn't stop in port if you forgot to turn it off, which there's absolutely no other reason to do. Exquisite. Cleaning the stuff on the surface with it is very satisfying though. But if you play it in a new playthrough, then the new quests line up with your main campaign, and all the garbage, upgrades, and visiting new areas make sense and flow naturally. It also just gives you more reasons to explore more of the world, and the extra upgrades make the chores less tedious and more enjoyable. It also has way better fleshed out horror elements than almost anything in the base game, so it's absolutely worth playing. It's all so ass backwards. Let's wrap this up, before I end up pissing all the indie heads off anymore. Under the surface, Dredge is kind of unfinished. It has some really questionable DLC practices, some baffling design choices, especially if you want to keep playing after the story's over, and it has little to no replay value, while somehow also disrespecting the player's time. I think it's a bit steep for the current asking price, even on sale. But if you don't care about any of that, then Dredge is a great one-off experience that'll keep you nice and happy for 8 to 12 hours. The core loop is satisfying, the story has a nice little reveal, and some great imagery, and the exploration and sound design are some of the best I've experienced in recent years. It's definitely worth playing, at least once. Next time there's gonna be less boat and Lovecraft, and more train and Dostoevsky. And with that, I'll see you next time. Yeah, you know what? Forget all the criticism. It's a fucking masterpiece.